The General Goddard was an East Indiaman launched in 1782 that made 6 voyages to the East Indies for the Honourable East India Company. After she was sold, she made 1 journey to the West Indies, where the Spanish captured her in November 1799. Her most notable exploit occurred on her 5th voyage, when she captured 7 Dutch East Indiamen on 15 June 1795. She was named for General Thomas Wyndahm Goddard, who played a major role in the First Anglo-Maratha War in 1780. Precautions. East Indiamen travelled in convoys as much as they could. Frequently these convoys had as escorts vessels of the British Royal Navy, though generally not past India, or before on the return leg. Even so, the Indiamen were heavily armed so that they could dissuade pirates and even large privateers. Like many other East Indiamen during the French Revolutionary Wars, General Goddard sailed under letters of marque. These authorized her to take prizes should the opportunity arise. Voyage number 1. Under the command of Captain Thomas Foxall, General Goddard left the Downs on the 11th of September 1782 and reached Madras on the 16th of April 1783. She reached Tanjore, at the southern tip of India, on the 22nd of October, and then Bombay on the 9th of November. In Bombay she took on board a part of the crew of the East Indiaman Resolution, which had been condemned in the East Indies. On her homeward-bound leg she arrived at St. Helena on the 9th of August 1784. She arrived at the Downs on the 24th of October. Voyage number 2. General Goddard, still under the command of Captain Thomas Foxall, left the Downs on the 17th of December 1785, reaching Madeira on the 5th of January 1786. Further she sailed to Johanna, in the Comoros Islands, arriving on the 26th of April, and Madras on the 7th of June. She then sailed for China, arriving at Malacca on the 31st of August and Whampoa on the 5th of October. On her return trip she crossed the Second Bar on the 18th of February 1787 and reached St. Helena on the 21st of June. She then entered the Downs on the 28th of August. Voyage number 3. General Goddard left the Downs on the 26th of February 1789 under the command of Captain Thomas Foxall. She reached Diamond Harbour on the 26th of June. On her homeward leg, she touched in at Saugor on the 27th of November and Madras on the 27th of December. Further she reached St. Helena on the 18th of March 1790. On the 14th of May she ran aground near the Brizou, at the Isle of Wight. She was gotten off, but had extensive damage and 10 feet of water in her hold. Still she arrived in the Downs on the 13th of June. Voyage number 4. For her 4th voyage, General Goddard was under the command of Captain Thomas Wakefield, with William Thomas Money as his first lieutenant. She left Portsmouth on the 16th of February 1792 and reached Simon's Bay by the 14th of May. She then reached Diamond Harbour on the 6th of July. On her return voyage she arrived at Cox's Island on the 3rd of December. Further she sailed to St. Helena, arriving the 28th of February 1793, and then on to the Downs, arriving the 13th of June. With war with France looming, General Goddard's first letter of marque was issued on the 9th of March 1793 to Captain Wakefield, presumably applied for by the HEIC in his absence. Voyage number 5 and the capture of a Dutch fleet. The HEIC swore in William Taylor Money as a captain in the service on the 16th of October 1793. General Goddard's second letter of marque was issued to Money on the 3rd of January 1794. He then sailed General Goddard from Portsmouth on the 2nd of May 1794, reached Madras on the 11th of September, and Diamond Harbour on the 10th of October. Homeward bound, she was at Saugor on the 19th of December, Madras on the 31st of January 1795, and St. Helena on the 4th of May. While General Goddard was at St. Helena, the 64-gun third-rate HMS Sceptre, under the command of Captain William Essington, arrived with a convoy of HEIC ships sailing to India and China. She brought the news that France had invaded the Netherlands in January. Furthermore, under an order dated the 9th of February 1795, Royal Navy vessels and British letters of marque were instructed to detain Dutch vessels and cargoes and bring them into British ports that they might be detained provisionally. Then on the 2nd of June the packet ship Swallow arrived from the Cape of Good Hope with the news that a convoy of Dutch East Indiamen had left the Cape, sailing for the Netherlands. On the 18th of May 1795, the Dutch brig Comet, under the command of Captain Lieutenant Mynheer Clarus, and the Dutch corvette Scipio, under the command of De Jong, set out from Table Bay with a convoy of 16 East Indiamen for Europe. Bad weather forced 8 Indiamen back to the Cape. These 8 sailed again on the 22nd of May. The remaining 8 Indiamen, which had sailed on the 18th of May together with the 2 escorts, and a private Dutch ship from the Cape, the whaler Herstilde, sailed on. All but 2 of this group reached ports in then neutral Norway. The 8 unescorted Dutch East Indiamen that had sailed on the 22nd of May had the misfortune to encounter Sceptre, General Goddard, and Swallow near St. Helena. Essington had prevailed upon Colonel Robert Brooke, the governor of St. Helena, to lend him some troops and to put the HEIC vessels there at the time to form a squadron to try and intercept the Dutch. On the 3rd of June, Sceptre, General Goddard, Manship, and Swallow set out. 5 other HEIC ships set out later, of which only Busbridge met up with the squadron. On the 7th of June, the squadron captured the richly laden Julie. 3 days later, the British captured the Dutch Indiaman Hawley, which Swallow escorted into St. Helena, before returning to the squadron with additional seamen. Due to bad weather, Manship and Busbridge lost contact with Essington's squadron. In the afternoon of the 14th of June, Essington's squadron sighted 7 sail. At 1 a.m. the next morning, General Goddard sailed through the Dutch fleet, which fired on her. She did not fire back. Later that morning, after some exchange of shots between the British and Dutch vessels, the Dutch surrendered. The HEIC ships Busbridge, Captain Samuel Maitland, and Asia, Captain John Davy Fawkes, arrived on the scene and helped board the Dutch vessels. There were no casualties on either side. The British then brought the prizes into St. Helena on the 17th of June. Captain Money received the thanks of Captain Essington and a Sword of Honour from Colonel Brooke. On the 1st of July, Sceptre, General Goddard and the prizes sailed from St. Helena to gather in other returning British East Indiamen. They then returned to St. Helena, where George Vancouver and Discovery, which had arrived there in the meantime, joined them. The entire convoy, now some 20 vessels or so strong, sailed from there on the 22nd of August for Shannon, where most arrived on the 13th of December, though 3 were lost. General Goddard reached the Downs on the 15th of October. Because the captures occurred before Britain had declared war on the Batavian Republic, the vessels became droits to the Crown. Still, prize money, in the amount of 2/3 of the value of the Dutch ships, amounted to £76,664.14. Of this, £61,331.15 was distributed among the officers and crew of Sceptre, General Goddard, Busbridge, Asia, and Swallow. The remainder went to Colonel Brooke, the garrison at St. Helena, and various vessels in the St. Helena roads. 33 years later, in July 1828, there was a small final payment. Voyage 6. General Goddard's third letter of marque was issued to Captain Thomas Graham on the 23rd of February 1796. He sailed from Portsmouth on the 12th of April 1796, and reached Simon's Bay on the 22nd of July. Further, General Goddard sailed to Madras, reaching there on the 17th of September. She took a detour to Trincomalee, which she reached on the 28th of December, before she returned to Madras on the 5th of January 1797. She then sailed up to Calcutta, reaching there on the 28th of February. She made a second loop, passing Kedgeree on the 1st of August, on her way to Penang, which she reached on the 24th of August, before returning to Diamond Harbour on the 30th of October. The reason for the to and fro was that the British government mounted an expedition against Manila in 1797–8. The EIC held several vessels in India to support the expedition. There were 8 regular ships: Lord Camden, Busbridge, Minerva, Lord Macartney, Lord Hawkesbury, Sir Stephen Lushington, Phoenix, and General Goddard. There were also 3 dismantled ships: Pitt, Lascelles, and Royal Admiral. The captains of all the vessels sued the EIC for reimbursement for expenses consequent on the delay to the homeward-bound journeys, and for the 8 regular ships, the additional risks involved in the detours to Penang. In 1800, the court awarded 6 of the captains of the regular ships, Graham among them, £750 each. The court further ordered that the officers of the vessels involved receive some payment. General Goddard's officers received £250 in all. The chief mate received £57 9s 5d, the purser £22 19s 9d, and the other officers intermediate amounts. General Goddard sailed homeward bound, passing Saugor on the 19th of December and arriving at Madras again on the 4th of February 1798. Further, she reached the Cape on the 23rd of April, St. Helena on the 26th of May, and the Downs on the 2nd of August. After General Goddard had returned to England in 1798, Robert Wigram sold her. Fate J. Inglis purchased her and she became a storeship with trade London, Jamaica. Captain John Bennett received a letter of marque on the 11th of June 1799. In autumn 1799, General Goddard was part of a convoy that consisted of vessels from England and Cork, sailing to Jamaica under escort by the frigate Crescent and the sloop Calypso. The convoy was negotiating the Mona Passage and was 10 or 12 leagues southwest of Puerto Rico on the morning of the 15th of November when it encountered a small Spanish squadron that was sailing from Santo Domingo to Havana. The Spanish vessels consisted of the 64-gun ship Asia, Commodore Don Francesco Montes, 40-gun frigate Anfitrite, Captain Don Diego Villagomez, and 16-gun ship corvette Galgard, Captain Don Joseph de Arias. Captain W. G. Lobb of Crescent attempted to draw the Spanish vessels away from the convoy, and when that failed, he had the convoy disperse. The 2 larger Spanish ships made for that part of the convoy with Calypso, but only captured the General Goddard, the most valuable ship in the convoy. She might well have evaded capture had General Goddard's master paid attention and followed the signals from the escorts. The Spaniards reached Havana on the 16th of December, having captured a schooner as well on the way. The value of the prizes, including the naval stores which they found of great use, was 440,000 pesos. Galgo sailed for the part of the convoy with Crescent, which captured her. The rest of the convoy arrived safely at Port Royal, Jamaica, some on the 21st of November with Calypso, and the remainder on the 23rd of November with Crescent. The British took Galgo into service under her existing name. It remains unclear what happened to the General Goddard after her capture. Commemorative stamp. On the 17th of December 1973, St. Helena issued a 6-piece stamp to commemorate General Goddard's capture of the Dutch East Indiaman. C.